Okay, we're on the record. This is the video deposition of Hector Solis in the matter of Hector Solis versus Vernon Thompson, September 10th, 2018. Would everyone introduce himself?
Yes, my name is Dana Matthews. I represent Hector Solis in this matter. Ms. Solis.
My name is Hector Solis. I'm the plaintiff in the matter.
Vernon Thompson, defendant.
Okay, go ahead.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We can begin now? Okay.
Just start with some preliminary matters. You did send me a screenshot on Friday of I'm assuming it's one case. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but no other documents you have that we're going to be going over?
I have a few, yeah.
Okay. The same documents that have they been provided?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, I may or may not object. I mean, as I told you.
Fair enough. Yeah, I accepted your terms. I won't be asking, I won't be relying on any documents that I have not answered, right? That I haven't answered yet. So,
Okay.
and that was our deal, right? I wouldn't rely on any of those.
Any documents have not been provided?
That I haven't been answered. If your email said that you would instruct him not to answer any questions if I didn't answer his discovery yet, and I agree to that. But there are a few other things.
Well, we'll just,
Sure.
like I said, I just want to let you know that's what I'm doing. So
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not going to try to interfere with the flow.
Yes, sir. All right. So, will you state your name, please, and spell it?
Hector Solis. Hectorsolis.
And your birth date
June 5th, 1963.
and your age.
I'm 55 years old.
What is your complete name?
Hector Mario Solis.
And have you ever used any other names to include a suffix or a prefix?
None.
I have a screenshot here that I sent your attorney, and it appears to be a 1997 divorce litigation between Hector Mario Solis Jr. and Jackie Solis. Is this you? There's 3 pages here.
Yeah. The front page is me. It says Jackie Solis versus Hector Solis. That seems correct.
What does that say?
I'm not sure what that is. I've never used a junior. I'm not a junior.
Junior was not used in this case?
This is not me. So I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
This divorce proceeding with Jackie Solis is not you?
Can you please identify where this document is coming from?
The internet.
Okay. Can you be a little bit more specific?
I can get specifics for you.
Well, we're here in deposition. Can you authenticate that and tell me where that came from?
I can. Eventually, I can only tell you I have a screenshot from the internet now.
Okay. Well, you can answer the question, but I'm going to object to any relevancy. I don't know if that.
You object to the relevance of this?
Yes, because I don't even know what the document is.
So you're not objecting to form, you're objecting to relevance.
Yeah, I'm objecting to the document, to relevancy and the extent that it's not been authenticated.
Okay.
Again, you can ask the question.
Sure.
This is for the record.
Sure, yeah, we'll take, we may end up taking that up with the judge to decide that, but, so you stated that that is not you.
Hector Solis Jr. is not me.
Okay.
I was in a divorce in '97 with Jackie Solis as Hector Solis.
And those divorce documents do not indicate that you're a junior.
No, my documents do not. That at the time do not.
What's your father's name?
Manuel Solis.
Does he have any other names? What's his full name?
Manuel Solis Perez.
Okay. All right, Councilman Solis, are you a public figure?
I am.
Object to the form.
You object to the form?
Object to the form. You can. Yeah.
Continue to ask
Yeah.
questions.
Just when I object to the form, I'm not going to Again, I'm not going for the flow if you, obviously.
I understand.
For a record.
Okay, thank you. And I will state here, I'm a pro se defendant. I've never done this before, and so forgive me if I'm a little clumsy.
No, I completely understand. That's why I'm just informing you that's what I'm
All right.
doing for the record.
All right, and you're suing me for defamation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what statement did I make that was defamatory? What is the quote or the statement that I made that would be defamation to a public figure?
On April 24th, you stated that you were going to break some new news to your audience, that you had just found out that Hector Solis was not a federal law enforcement officer, and that in actuality he was just a groundskeeper.
So saying groundskeeper is defamation to a public figure?
Stating that I was not a law enforcement officer is defamation, as it's against the law to impersonate a law enforcement officer.
Okay. Have you ever told anybody that you are a law enforcement officer?
I have.
Have you, who did you tell?
I can't answer that as far as how many people I might have spoken to regarding that.
Have you ever told voters that?
Quite possibly, yes.
Have you ever told Judge Fenson that you were a law enforcement officer?
Not in spoken. I've never spoken to Judge Fenson, so just in my filings it states it.
Have you ever written a letter to Judge Fenson stating that you're a law enforcement officer?
I believe I did.
Okay. So you've told Judge Fenson you're a law enforcement officer. Is he under the impression that you are indeed a law enforcement officer?
Object to the form. You can answer.
I'm not sure what he's aware of. That was probably a different case.
Okay. Have you ever told City Hall that you're a law enforcement officer?
City Hall is broad. Can you go ahead and narrow that?
Sure. Have you ever told one or more people that you are a deputy sheriff?
No.
Did you ever tell one or more people at City Hall in any form, by telephone, in person, text message perhaps, or email? Did you ever tell anybody who works at City Hall that you are a deputy sheriff at any point?
No.
Okay. Did you ever tell anybody that you were a maintenance man, or that you did maintenance work or electrical work while you were employed with the federal government?
Want to qualify, yes, in that I was a journeyman electrician.
Okay. Is that a law enforcement officer?
In the capacity of the Federal Bureau of Prison, yes.
What do you mean?
In that all people hired by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, when they go through the academy, are all federal law enforcement, because we are all considered primary correctional officers first and our actual occupation second.
So you went through the academy.
Correct.
When did you graduate?
It would have been February to March of, I believe it was 1988. I'd have to.
1988. Where was the academy? What was the name of the academy?
It's in Glencoe, Georgia.
Glencoe,
Mm-hmm.
Georgia. And does it have a name? Is it just called the academy?
It's called FLETC. FLETC.
FLETC.
Federal Law Enforcement Training.
And how long was that course?
That was a 3-week course.
3-week course. And is that your primary course that you took to become a law enforcement officer?
Correct.
So
Yes.
this is the course that gave you that status.
Yes.
You didn't take any other courses, any longer courses, just a 3-week course?
As far as law enforcement training for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, it was that course.
Okay.
I've had numerous courses throughout my career to enhance my law enforcement status.
So You said that any employee that goes through this course is considered a law enforcement officer. Is that true during the time of employment or only at the time of retirement?
Object to the form. Answer.
It is true to anyone that is hired in a primary federal law enforcement position that has at least done 3 years of employment with the Federal Bureau of Prisons within a primary law enforcement position.
The law enforcement position that you held was all at the Federal Bureau of Prisons?
Correct.
And how many people did you arrest while you were a law enforcement officer?
I have not arrested anyone.
How many people have you given a citation to, like a ticket?
In the Federal Bureau of Prisons, you don't give tickets. There have been many different types of citations that have been given inside of a prison for violation of laws and rules and regulations, but they're not considered tickets.
As a law
They're called
enforcement,
incident reports.
okay. As a law enforcement officer, did you wear a badge?
A badge was only necessary when traveling with firearms.
But did you wear a badge?
We're credentialed. We don't necessarily carry badges.
But I guess I'm asking you for a yes or no answer. When you were a law enforcement officer, did you ever wear a badge?
I answered that if I was carrying a weapon off premises, I had a badge.
So you have worn a badge.
You don't wear it on you, you carry it with you.
Yeah, forgive me for being frustrated here, but when I think of a law enforcement officer, I think of somebody who has a badge on them. That's just my perception, and so I'm asking you if you ever wore it on your chest, or that's my question.
I have not worn a badge on my chest.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Solis, have you ever, when I think of a law enforcement officer, I think of somebody who carries a gun. Have you ever carried a gun on your hip?
I have.
You have as a law enforcement officer?
Yes.
Okay. When you went to the academy and graduated circa 1988, do you have any? When I went to boot camp, I still have friends from boot camp. I'm wondering if you have any friends who could corroborate your attendance at this school. Do you know anybody still from your class?
I don't recall.
When you were a law enforcement officer at the Bureau of Prisons, who was your last supervisor?
Jose Santana.
Jose Santana. And I can remember all of my supervisors while I was in the Air Force. Can you remember any other supervisors' names that you had during your career?
I had many.
And who are some of them?
Walt Pritchard.
Walt Pritchard,
Reuben Foreman.
Reuben Foreman,
Lauren Thackra.
Lauren Thackra,
Danny Nichols.
Danny Mitchells,
David Justice.
David Justice,
Charles Turnbow.
Charles, how do you spell that last name?
Turnbo.
Okay.
Trying to go through different duty stations. Joseph Woodring.
Joseph Woodring,
Dave Berkebile.
Dave, do you know how to spell that last name?
Berkebile.
Okay.
Roger Stone.
Roger Stone,
Victor Orsolitz.
Victor Orsolitz,
Dennis Callahan.
Dennis Callahan,
Joseph Keffer.
Joseph Keffer. K-E-P-H-E-R.
Keffer is K-E-I-F-F-E-R, I believe. Eric Wolchin.
How do you spell that last name?
Wolchin, W-O-H-T-J-E-N. Craig Pickles. And you have Jose Santana.
Okay.
Would you like their title?
No, that's good, thank you. And when you were a law enforcement officer, you had posted on Facebook to Frank Sewell some of the things that you indicated in your interrogatory answers. And some of them were mighty impressive. You had mentioned that you had assisted the transfer of, I believe it was 500 inmates a day with planes that never touched the ground. How does that, that's an incredible operation, how does that work? With planes never touching the ground?
That statement was never made. It might have stated that inmates did not touch the ground prior to entering the prison, but not that planes didn't touch the ground.
All right. Mr. D.C. Matthews, do you mind if I just glance at that real quick? You're welcome to keep it. I just want to make sure. I just read this. We had 2 planes and 5 days a week, 500 inmates a day just on planes, not including the buses in and out daily. Planes pull up directly to the prison and never touch the ground. Is this you?
Okay. First, first you need to
I'm just
identify
asking.
whether or not you recognize this document.
I do
You did
recall
post
that.
on Facebook, yeah. And will you read this right here? Just that little sentence.
Yeah, it says planes pull up directly to the prison, and there's a misstatement. It's the inmates never touch the ground, but I probably did that, and that's a typo.
Okay. Also on here, you talked about 85,000. You were responsible for the movement of 85,000 inmates annually. 500 a day. Is 500 per day 365 days a week if you did it every day? Is that 85,000?
Object to the form. You can answer.
That's an approximate number, 500, and it wasn't a 7-day operation. It's a 5-day operation.
It says here that I was responsible for the movement of 85,000 inmates annually. Tell me how you were responsible for 85,000 inmates.
I was the supervisor in charge of that department that did the movement. My staff, the institution, moved those inmates. It was my responsibility as a supervisor of that staff to make sure that those inmates were processed safely throughout the center, in and out annually. And those are the approximate numbers that we moved as far as inmates go through the transfer center on an annual basis.
And what year was that?
The year that he wrote this, or the year that he?
Thank you. The year that you were responsible for the movement of 85,000 inmates.
Without looking at my time frames when I was from place to place, that would have been in mid-2000s, my 3-year period there.
And that was in Oklahoma City, I see, okay.
Federal transfer.
And also, have you ever made the statement that you were a hostage negotiator?
I did.
Will you tell me about that? Did you negotiate any hostage situations?
Yes.
And which one did you negotiate?
I was involved in 2 different hostage negotiation situations. The first one being the Talladega riots, I believe, in 1991, where Cubits had taken Alpha unit at FCI Talladega. I was dispatched within 6 hours of the incident. I spent 8 3/4 days as a hostage negotiator during that incident with direct negotiations with inmates on a daily basis.
And how long had you been a law enforcement officer at that point?
Approximately 3 years.
3 years, and you were negotiating? Approximately 3 years, and you were negotiating hostages?
I actually had just gone to training 4 months prior to that. Yes.
Okay. And have you ever made the statement that a law enforcement...
Did you want the second ones? Or?
Yeah, sure.
The second one was at Reeves County, Pecos, Texas, hostage situation, where I was dispatched to assist with the negotiations there. I served more as an advisor. The situation was resolved within about 12 hours of my arrival.
Now, in these two situations, these are big, I mean, these are highlights of a career, aren't they?
Object to the form, you can answer.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. During that time, did you develop any friendships? Is there anybody that you know during that time who could corroborate your involvement?
Yes.
Who?
Once again, it's numerous. Tom Fagan, Chief of All Hostage Negotiation in D.C. Don Murray, who selected me to go to Talladega from D.C. Ronald Thompson, who was the warden, my warden at the time, that dispatched me. And there are many. So.
All right.
Are you wanting to move those into as exhibits for the court reporter?
Is that the normal procedure? Mr.
Well,
DC
if you're
Mathis?
going to refer to those in the with the deposition transcript later,
I have no problem doing that.
then you need to let the court reporter know which one.
Okay.
And I believe the first one was the screenshot.
It's the screenshot of the 1997 divorce with, it's right here.
Do you have any stickies?
I do, but I'll just pull
Okay.
the one I'm gonna start with, and I'll put a sticker of it later.
And also, this is a screenshot of a Facebook post there. All right. All right, let's talk about, Councilman Solis, your federal law enforcement credentials that you've provided. And we can begin with the letter written by Brad Eskridge that you provided in production. And this is the letter here. And who wrote that letter?
Brad Eskridge.
And how do you know Brad Eskridge?
I first knew Brad Eskridge probably early 1990s at my first duty station. He was the assistant human resource manager at FCI Seagoville.
Would you consider him a friend today?
I do consider him a friend, yes.
And the letter here is from what's the source? Where's this from? Where did Brad Eskridge work when he wrote that letter?
As it says here on the letter, Human Resource Service Center in Grand Prairie, Texas. He was the chief of the Consolidated Benefits Unit Office, which is the office that processed my retirement.
And when did you get this letter?
I received this in September
Of what year?
2017.
And when did Brad Eskridge retire?
The end of December 2017.
And when did you make this public?
I believe mid-January of
After-
2018.
After Eskridge retired.
Correct.
Why did you wait till after he retired if you had it since September?
I was not waiting till after he retired. I was hoping that the nonsense would go away, and I wanted something in record in case I needed it.
Nonsense. What do you mean by nonsense?
The information, the false information that you were perpetrating on a sometimes daily basis.
Nonsense. Would you consider when I would be at a city council meeting and you're a city councilman, and I would ask, after the meeting, I would ask if you were a federal law enforcement officer, would you consider that nonsense?
Object to the form. You can answer.
Once it was answered, yes.
And when I asked you what your rank was, would you consider that nonsense?
Same objection. You can answer.
I notified you of my rank.
Okay. And what is your rank?
At the time of retirement, I was a GS-13.
Is that a rank or is that a pay grade?
It's whatever you like to consider.
Well, for example, when I think of a rank, I think of captain, sergeant. Did you have any of those titles?
I had titles, but not one as a captain or a lieutenant.
Just GS-13.
No, I had titles dependent on the position I was in. Unit manager, jail administrator, executive assistant, electrical worker foreman.
Okay.
Those are titles.
Okay. So the letter here, how was it made public?
It was made public through a website, I think it was PCB Owners Alliance.
Was it ever posted on Facebook?
Yes,
By who?
by the individual that runs the PCB Owners Alliance,
What is his name or her name?
Daryl Sellers.
Okay. So Daryl Sellers posted this on Facebook as well.
Yes.
Is that correct? And that would have been, when did he post that first?
It's in your documents, but I believe it was January, I can't recall if it was January 21st or 23rd or,
But certainly after Chief Eskridge had retired.
yes.
Okay. When this was posted on Facebook, I believe, and I don't have it with me, this is recollection, I believe that you had posted something that said, here is a letter that verifies my employment, and if you have any questions, feel free to call Chief Eskridge. Do you remember posting that?
I don't recall, so I did that.
Okay. So when I discovered this, I did just that. I took your advice and I called Chief Eskridge, and it would have been in January, I believe, but certainly after this was posted, I called Brad Eskridge here. And I got a voicemail, and the voicemail said, this is Brad Eskridge. If you need to talk to somebody right away, call Betty Pacino.
Is there a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I called Betty Pacino. Are you familiar with Betty Pacino?
I know of her, yes.
You've never met her.
Yes, I have met her.
Okay. Have you ever talked to her about this letter?
I have not.
What is her title?
I believe her title is Deputy Chief Consolidated Benefits Unit.
When I spoke to Betty, when I called Betty, she said that our office doesn't do employment verification. Does this office do employment verification normally?
Some would, yes.
Some offices would, or some people would,
Some people would, yes.
to include Brad Eskridge.
Yes.
You say you never spoke to Betty Pacino about this letter.
Correct.
Did Brad Eskridge ever speak to Betty Pacino about this letter?
Yes.
What was the nature of that conversation?
As someone that had taken his position when he retired, she questioned why the letter was written and if it was okay to go ahead and provide verification. At which time Mr. Eskridge called me and asked, since I had released him to give information, He then told me, he passed it on to her, that I was okay with information being provided regarding my employment.
In order to get information about your employment with the BOP, is it necessary to get your permission the way you gave it to Mr. Eskridge?
In the contents of this letter, yes, but public information, no.
Okay. So when I called the Human Resource Department, as I told you in an email, and they said I needed your permission to get the information I asked for. Do you recall that email I sent you and I asked you to give me permission?
I do.
Yeah. And did you give me permission?
I did not.
At one of the city council meetings that you described as nonsense, I asked you, how can I find out about your law enforcement career? And did you answer, you can call the Federal Bureau of Prisons?
I did, and you
Yeah.
put in a public record request in also. It's public information.
So when I called the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they said I needed your permission, and I asked you for permission, and you said no, correct?
It would have been based on what you were asking for. To verify my employment, that is a public record.
All right.
So you could have received that.
So I'm clear, but you cleared Brad Eskridge to have Betty Pisano reply to me in an email saying that this was correct.
I did.
What was the birth date on that email?
What email?
Well, I sent Betty Pisano an email and I asked her about Hector Mario Solis, and there was a birth date on the email.
You have the date in front of you?
I don't have the date in front of me.
Well, if you're gonna rely on the email, I mean, you can answer the question, I'm gonna object.
Well, my question is, was the I think we know, was the birth date correct? When I asked her about Hector Mario Solis and I put the birth date, was that birth date your birth date?
My recollection is that you asked Ms. Pisino if the information in the letter was accurate. Ms. Pisino replied that the information provided by Mr. Eskridge was accurate with the exception of my retirement date. As far as dates you're talking about, that's not what you asked her.
Was that your correct birth date in my email?
I recall that you put a wrong birth date of mine on that email.
And she confirmed that the person with that birth date was correct.
She acknowledged that the information that Mr. Eskridge provided was correct with the exception of the retirement date.
So we would agree that the email had an incorrect birth date.
I would agree that your email had an incorrect birth date.
Okay. Is there an incorrect date on your employment verification letter that your friend wrote and was posted on Facebook?
Yes, there's an incorrect date on the letter that Mr. Eskridge wrote.
And what is the significance of that date?
Not sure what you're asking.
Okay. And thank you. If I ask a question that's unclear, if you tell me just that, I will do my best to rephrase it. Is your retirement date on the letter written by your friend Brad Eskridge, is that retirement date correct?
No.
What date is that?
December 31st, 2017. I retired in 2014. I believe it was December 28th.
Did Brad Eskridge retire on December 31st, 2017?
Yes.
So your employment verification letter written by your friend Brad Eskridge actually has Brad Eskridge's retirement date on here?
That might have been why he made a mistake. Yes.
How does that happen?
Maybe that date was on his mind since he was retiring that year. Maybe he thought mine was December 31st, 2014 and did 17 because the date was on his mind.